And let's go back over here. So rather than talk to 25 people, why don't we just add another 20,000 people to this room, which is what we just did. So now we're going live through a site called Streamlabs. We're going live right now on my 2 YouTube channels, and we're going live on my 3 of my Facebook channels right now. And everybody's watching this. If I was standing back there, everybody would be listening to it. And this is part of the solution to the problems that were the query that we're dealing with right now. Okay, any questions? God, you guys are like this. Would you have meatloaf for lunch or something like that? Okay, so here's the whole point. So I showed you how you've got these real estate companies who are running amok right now, these financial technology companies who are running fast and loose with the rules for which we have to follow for fear of remarkable retribution. So how do we get to this point? Well, this is from a site called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was just downloaded today. And I want you to hear about this. It's called the Innovation at the Bureau. There's a new group that was started over there about a year and a half ago called, hi Rob, called the Office of Innovation. Now the Office of Innovation right here is creating policies and sandboxes through which we reduce potential barriers to innovation. And I thought to myself, that term sandbox is really interesting, isn't it? Where does the term sandbox come from? Well, I've learned about it. So what it is the idea behind a sandbox is, as a kid, you could go into a sandbox and you could build something up, and then you could knock it over and you could rebuild something again. The idea is the concept is you keep trying until you get something that you like, right? So does that make sense? And there is a new group called the Office of Innovation over at the CFPB, which I think has been around for about a year and a half, but time is kind of a hard thing for me these days. But what they're saying is creating policies and sandboxes through which we reduce potential barriers to innovation. Now, this is also from the CFPB that we brought down today. And I wanted to read some of the language here, which I just find interesting. Such permission when it comes to sandbox laws and rules, and this is what's governing these fintech companies. Understand the idea is that the Bureau has a congressional mandate to bring technology into the mortgage space. The idea of bringing technology into the mortgage space is to make mortgages more accessible for folks, especially those of low to moderate income folks in high-risk communities. But does it always work that way, or are there unintended consequences for some of the rules, regulations, and guidelines that govern our industry?
Unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences. There's a lot of that going on. Just ask my wife and kids. So, anyways, this is from the CFPB, the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection, and here's what they say when it comes to dealing with sandbox laws. Such permission may include providing a legal safe harbor. Okay, so now what? A legal safe harbor. Such permissions for these sandbox laws, where we can go ahead and try things and kick them over, provided it has something to do with technology, we're going to create safe harbor for that. The Bureau may deem a covered person conducting such a program. What's a program? It's just trying something new. A program to be in compliance with or exempt from. Be in compliance, it can either work, or perhaps, think about this, it could be in compliance, or it could be exempt from, meaning the rules and regulations that govern you don't necessarily govern your competition if they're deemed to be one of these sandbox fintech companies. You could find yourself being exempt. Exempt from a requirement of a rule, that's called a guideline, or enumerated consumer law. So what the CFPB is saying is, for your competition, if you fall into certain parameters, certain areas, you don't necessarily have to follow the same rules and regulations as what governs you. Now, for a group called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I find it very peculiar that, all right, there's a bureau. They're there to protect consumers with regard to their finance. However, if you're one of these fintech companies, that's all out the window. It seems kind of strange to me. Similarly, although the Bureau rules must provide provide for public disclosure, and that's good, of such programs. Such public disclosure may be limited to the extent necessary to encourage covered persons to conduct effective trials. Meaning, it should be public. However, maybe it's not always a great idea to make this public to your consumers. Isn't the whole idea transparency? And here in one paragraph, when it comes to the Office of Innovation for the CFPB, we say we can run them up with what we're doing. We might be compliant, we might be exempt, we might not be exempt, and we might make it public, and we might not make it public. Now, for an industry that is screaming for clarity, this is the most confusing thing on the face of the planet. So when I showed you what I just showed you with those closing statements from these fintech companies and what their goals are, and by the way, their goals, their moral and legal obligation is to their shareholders, and now we have the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau saying, you can go ahead and run fast and loose with the rules and regulations, and I know that you're a shark in the water. Who's truly the apex predator? Now, how did we come up with this whole fintech sandbox thing? Well, it started in Arizona. Arizona was the first state who does a lot of this type of stuff, who came up with a sandbox law when it comes to fintech, with fintech companies. And so they were the ones who patterned this entire thing. And in fact, the first person to run the Office of Innovation over at the CFPB happened to be the person who wrote all the sandbox fintech laws for the state of Arizona. Here's the reason I bring that up. If you want to find out where companies like Opendoor, OfferPad, and Zillow have the largest presence by far, at one point upwards of 20% of the entire market, it was in Arizona. Why is that? Because they were the first ones to spearhead this movement where we didn't have to disclose anything to your clients. Because, my God, what we need right now is we need progress in technology more than we need rules and safeguards. And here's the whole thing. In the whole process of buying and selling a house, I'll tell you this. When we have kind of the whole separation of church and state type of idea, where you have somebody writing a loan, somebody doing real estate, somebody doing title, somebody doing appraisals, underwriters, the whole process creates a thing called checks and balances. And the checks and balances protect everybody in the process. So when somebody's buying or selling a house that's going for $500,000, I think it's kind of important that we protect both the buyer and the sellers. And what we've done traditionally is protect buyers and sellers. So back to my original point. Does technology always make things faster, better, and cheaper? And the answer is it certainly makes things faster. I don't know if it makes things better, and it absolutely does not make things cheaper. Look at the cost that I just showed you. So here's the reason I bring this up to you today. OfferPad home loans. You guys see these guys as real estate companies. You're out of your mind. They're taking this roadshow and they're bringing it to your industry, coming to a theater near you. Opendoor home loans, coming to a theater near you. This whole idea of running fast and loose for an industry that's so tightly regulated and governed, we're going to take these same fintech laws and we're going to let them run fast and loose in your industry. Oh, and by the way, they're insidious and parasitical in terms of what their approach is. It was really amazing for me to see, when COVID hit, Zillow and OfferPad and Opendoor, they had all these really strong, they had massive contracts and they had deep roots in certain communities. But when COVID hit, what they did is they broke every one of their contracts with absolutely everybody. All of your clients, people who live in your communities. Why did they do that? Because for Opendoor, OfferPad, and Zillow, your clients, your friends, your neighbors, people in your communities, they're nothing but a line item on a spreadsheet. They're a P&L. That's all they are. They're your friends, but for these companies, when your clients decide to work with these guys, they're a line item on a spreadsheet. And also think about this. When they do a loan with OfferPad, Opendoor, Zillow, where does that money go? I mean, they're going to have people who are going to write loans. They're not going to be called loan officers. It's a puppy mill approach to these things. It really honestly is. And so that money is not going to stay in your community. So, for instance, when you guys close a loan, you take that money and you reinvest it in your community. You go to your local bar and get shit-faced. And that money stays in your... All right, for some of you, I'll meet you in a few hours. community. When you keep money in your community does well. Now, in areas like San Diego, and especially in areas like California, this is not that big of an issue. But when you go to what we call, by the way, they call them flyover states. When you go to Kansas, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Missouri, these are communities that can ill afford having these insidious type of companies come in and strip mine them of their wealth, because that money is being actually taken out of the community. It's not going to local realtors and local lenders. We're going to reinvest that in the community. Now, Open Door is also not just a home buyer and seller, but they're also a lender. I gotta move something here. Oh, and Zillow. So here's Zillow talking about this is from Zillow's Q2 2020 earnings report. Mortgage revenue of $68 million in the first quarter, it exceeded their outlook. They increased by 169% year over year. Now, should you guys be worth 68? I mean, come on, $68 million. That's shit. I know individual loan officers would be more than that. Should you be worried about this? Well, here's my answer. Well, let's not freak out. The sky isn't falling. But let's just understand who our adversary is. Here's what Zillow will always have, more than you will. They will be better funded than you and your company will ever be funded. They will always have better technology. And they will always be more focused and more streamlined. So the revenue of $68 million, that's pretty good. Okay? But this is $68 million for the first quarter. That's not that big of a deal. But see, here's the whole thing. You need to understand, every time in Seattle, when their board gets in there, they wake up every morning and they say, okay, how can we make more money today? Let's do that. And then they sharpen their teeth, they pin their ears back, and that's the direction that they go. Here's why you should be concerned about it. And again, I told you we were going to start with making you guys sad, and then we're going to find solutions for this. Here's the reason. 2.5 billion visitors, 221 million unique users monthly. All of your clients are here. And remember I told you there is a built-in belief and assumption that technology makes things better, faster, and cheaper. Everybody believes it. So when Zillow is on the TV, when Zillow's on the radio, when Zillow's on your computer, and Zillow's over there telling you, hey, come work with us, we're all better at everything, everybody's listening because there's an inherent belief that the technology is better, faster, and cheaper. And again, we just showed you, it might be faster, but it's not cheaper, and it certainly isn't better. But with 221 million monthly unique, average monthly unique users, that's a tongue twister, this should be something that should catch the ears of all of you. By the way, none of you can compete with this. So stop looking at these companies as real estate companies. I talk to loan officers all the time. Who cares about those guys? It has nothing to do with me. I'm worried about Quicken. Really? We think Quicken and Rocket is the biggest apex predator out there? You are out of your freaking mind. You're out of your mind. There are forces out there that are 10 times bigger than them. So who is truly the apex predator in our world right now? If it's not you, it's these fintech companies who are governed by different laws, rules, and regulations than you are. And this is all, my friends, by design, and it's all being lobbied right now, and it's all going to start to become more effective. So how can, oh, by the way, here, this is really great. This is the oldest man in Australia, and this is the oldest man in Australia, true story, and he knits tiny sweaters for injured penguins. Look at that. Look at him. Isn't that cute? I figured we needed to smile after me just telling you everything was falling apart in our world. But that's true. It's something like, isn't he the cutest thing in the world? Oh, goodness. All right. So, what can we do about it? If you're a mortgage broker, you're working for yourself. Okay? If you're working for any type of banking operation, understand this. Your employer wants to fire you, especially if you're a top producer. Why? Because you're the most expensive component in the entire transaction. And half of you are a pain in the ass. Okay? You are. I deal with you guys. Trust me. You're a pain in the ass. So am I, sir. I'm not throwing daggers or casting judgment. Trust me. I'm in my own cup of tea too. But it's true. Every mortgage company in the country is looking at this great technology thing, and they're trying to emulate or recreate what these fintech companies companies are doing in some way, shape, or form. And if you're a loan officer who's working for anything other than a bank, your company wants to fire you. Now, I work with, in fact, I'm going to see a couple of these companies tomorrow, and we'll have the same, we have these conversations all the time. They can't fire you. Like having a loan officer who's working for a bank, I think it was Mark Twain who once said, is kind of like holding a wolf by the horns, or by the ears. You sure don't like it, but you dare not let go, right? That's what the relationship with loan officers is. So just understand this. So the first thing, you guys are working as mortgage brokers is giving you a certain level of autonomy. And autonomy is the place where you need to be. And again, I'm coming to you as an advocate for loan officers. I'm not coming to you as an advocate for your mortgage company or for any of these wholesalers out here. I'm an advocate for loan officers. So autonomy, things that you can control, is going to be great for you. The second thing you can do is understand if you can't compete with them, then you have to understand the field that you can actually compete on. Remember that movie 300, you know, the story of the Spartans who held off the Persians at the Pass of Thermopylae, which is a great story, which actually took place who knows historically, but the idea was is a small garrison could hold a pass against a much larger force for a longer period of time. Why could they do this? Well, it was simple, because they picked and chose where that fight was going to be. And it was going to be the Pass of Thermopylae. If you watch UFC fights this week, and I was listening to Teddy Atlas, and Teddy Atlas was talking about, you know, if you're going to fight, you need to control the real estate in the ring. You want to go ahead and have that fight in the area which is going to benefit you. It's going to be in the corners, it's going to be in the middle, it's going to be on the ropes. So you have to understand where you guys can actually succeed. You guys trying to compete with the likes of Open Door, Zillow, OfferPad, Quicken, all of these, a lot of the big ones, a lot of the big retail guys out there. If you try to compete with them on their terms, where it's all going to be about technology, making things impersonal, trying to automate everything to death, I'm going to drip on you till your ears bleed. Awesome, that sucks. You have to understand that you have to pick and choose your battlefield. You have to go micro when the rest of the industry is going macro. Because I asked you, nobody answered, what would distinguish a loan officer as being successful in a normal year? And it's about 3 or 4 deals. You're going to have great years for the next couple of years, but read the tea leaves, not for today, but read what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day, and start adjusting today. Start going small. How do we go small? The first thing we need to do is we need to start working with non-QM companies. Yes, I got Oaktree out here, but there's great non-QM that's here right now. Angel Oak is a fantastic non-QM company. Here's the reason why. Non-QM is going to be, as I told you at the very beginning, they're going to be a massive growth opportunity for loan officers as we're going forward. And for those of you who've written loans for like 10 years or less, and you've been doing like basically the meat and potato loans, I'm doing Fannie Freddie Ginnie stuff. No, you're a ticker taker. That's all you're doing. You're taking tickets. 10 years before, you would actually have to sit down and look at a whole variety of different products to make a determination about what's going to be the best option for your client that's on the table. Again, you can look at some of your agency deals right now, some of your agency loans. Your non-QM guys are going to have better pricing on some of this stuff. And even if they don't, it behooves you, if you want to truly call yourself a professional, to find out what some of these non-QM companies are doing. They're going to be a massive growing segment of our industry, especially if we start to see the appetite from Fannie and Freddie continue to follow. I think that's going to change, but in the short term, it doesn't look like it. But having great non-QM options on the table is going to be huge for you. Now, here's what you also have to do: get informed. Like, here's some of the stuff that I do. By the way, I go to Rob Crispin every day. So does Keywords big here. Here. I read Rob every day. Twitter. So what I do on Twitter, I don't really post on Twitter a bunch, but I follow everybody on Twitter. So I follow mortgage people. I follow different economists. I follow brilliant minds. I follow different sites. You follow people who print great analytics. Twitter is a great place for me to go to just to kind of see what's going on an hour-by-hour basis. And what you have to do if you don't like Twitter, well, so what? Be a professional. Just suck it up. But go there and find great information and keep yourself informed and abreast of what's going on. Facebook groups are massive for you. Google Star News, so what I do is on my Googles, I have starred sites and things, so I'm constantly getting emails finding out what's going on. Inman's great, Lactose Agents, Housing Wire, DS2, CBC, Forbes. I mean, all these different sites. Just start going out there and make these part of what you do and consume information on a daily basis. I mean, just don't show up to work blind. Find different ways to go ahead and make sure you're abreast of what's going on. Oh, by the way, your account reps, all of your account reps, and all of their products. If you don't know all the products that are available to you, and they're growing, and they're going to become much more significant in the coming years. If you don't know this, then you're not a professional. You're a hack. Seriously, you're a hack. Understand all the different programs that are available to you. Networking, both personal and virtual. Listen, I'm not against technology. I'm just saying there's a way that you can effectively use it. Anything that you find that automates you out of the picture and makes things impersonal is ineffective. And I do this shit. I mean, I got companies that do this stuff, and I can't stand it. In your own person, like, your church, games, I've seen farmers market, mixers, masterminds, local first-time home buyer seminars, local home seller seminars, newsletters are a great thing. I have somebody who writes a newsletter. This is so interesting. His name is Tony Ray, a real estate agent out in Tucson. He goes, and this guy, he's a real estate agent. He knocks out like 14 transactions per month. I went out and saw him and his husband in Tucson, and so I went out there, and they wanted to show me their neighborhood. And they have their whole tour of Tucson. And it's methodical, and it's really cool. But Tony Ray has been putting out a newsletter for years, and it's effective for him. He goes, Brian, I do it on yellow paper, because yellow is the easiest thing that stands out. He goes, also, if you think about it, yellow is the color that envelopes when you get something from Amazon, and we are now conditioned when we get something from Amazon, it makes us happy. We no longer get bills in the mail, but I thought, this is like the level of detail that he's looking at. And it's effective. So don't sleep on this old stuff. I mean, right now, stale mail and some of the things that listen, bell bottoms are coming back, baby. Some of the stuff that we think, like we're so infatuated with this idea called technology. Don't lose sight of the grind, the things that will get you there. And if anybody tries, and here's what I hate about shit like this, is everybody sells you a magic pill. Hi, for $399, I'll sell you a magic pill every month. And if you can just take it and choke this thing down, choke it down, you'll be successful without having to do shit. Like, that's what a lot of people are selling. Understand, it's not that. This industry is a grind. That's why it chews people up and spits them out. Do the hard work. Engage, embrace your community. Also, I live in a 1 square mile area. I've literally ridden bikes with all my kids to their school for 22 years. Every day, get on bicycles and we ride to school. And then my office, if I'm not traveling, everything I do is in 4 blocks. It's just 4 blocks, downtown Backward, a little tiny place. So I took a pen and paper, and I thought there's probably like 20 buildings here, 20 companies. So I did it. I went and took a pen and paper, and I went and I looked, how many companies are down here? There's like 78 in that little area. That's 78 opportunities. And by the way, every one of these companies is a database. Where I get how much time do I have left real quickly? 0? I started 15 minutes late, so I'm taking another 10, 15 minutes. Just understand that every place you go in your personal life, your personal ecosystem, is a database. Because everybody wants to live indoors, where people get coffee, where they cut their hair, where they bake, where they have lunch, those type of things. So understand that there's opportunities with the places of the people who currently know you. Using Facebook sites is great because they're all, every one of these Facebook sites in your community are all databases that you can work with. Building your own site, this is one I built with a gal during the middle of COVID. She had 2,400 members on this. The cool thing about that is that it's a self-sustaining site at this point. Shooting videos are great. Okay, so this was a couple of days ago. I had 31 shares on this one. Okay, and this is just, by the way, hitting a button and going live. Here's another, just again, shooting a video from my office. There's nothing really neat about this. 303 shares on that with, I don't know, 40,000 views, something like that. 71,000 post impressions, 366, 16,696. Some of my Facebook, by the way, it doesn't matter if you get 40 or if you get 600, because if you're talking to 40 people, that's you having a personal conversation with 40 other people. Using sites like this right here, this is called Streamlabs. What we're doing right now is we're having a conversation with 10,000 people outside of this room who are watching this right now. As I told you, I'm streaming to 3 Facebook sites right now and 2 YouTube sites. What things things like Streamlabs allows you to do is go ahead and produce your Facebook Lives, which is really cool. It's a little bit of work, but we can figure it out. And finally, a rolling stone gathers no moss, but it can gain a certain level of polish. Here's the whole thing, guys. People come up to me and say, "Is this a good marketing idea?" Yes. Is it? Yes. So everything that I've ever tried, I'll tell you, like my intended consequence has always been marked equally by wonderful things that happened that I did not see. It was outside of my periphery. So anything that you think of, especially if it's absurd, if you're trying to market or do something that's going to keep you from staring at your computer and doing nothing and playing that blame game and just start to wake up and kick ass. And I'll tell you, every day when I wake up and I go to work and I shoot a video every day, and I've done this for 14 years, if I'm not laughing and having a great time, I ain't doing it. Imagine 14 years waking up and enjoying what you do. We can have fun with our marketing. We can have a micro solution to the macro problem. Okay? If you want to learn more about this, and I knew we were going to run up against it, but if you guys want to learn more about this, next Wednesday I'll do a free webinar just for the people over at camp. All you have to do is text camp to that number. If you do that, I'll capture your information, we'll set up a webinar, and we will deep dive, and I'll show you guys how to use the stuff that we talked about. With that said, for those who watch National Real Estate Post, I totally appreciate it. Thank you. And for those of you who don't, start watching it. thenationalrealestatepost.com. We'll do a video for you every day. We'll try to tell you some things about the industry, make you smile, and give you a little sales nourishment. So with that said, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hey, listen, I'll sit there all day if you guys want.
If you want to stay and take a few minutes and have some questions
Sure.
answered,
Of
that's
course.
great. And if you want to take a quick break and then be back here by 2:45 to hear Ginger Bell speak, you can do that too. So,
Any
Brian,
questions?
questions?
Yeah, question.
Yeah.
So you are doing this content creation to make money from the YouTube or what?
Well, it started, how the whole thing started was in 2007 and 8 when the industry was falling apart, there was this thing called YouTube that nobody had ever heard of. And so I was sending my video out to like 14 real estate agents, and nobody knew what viral was. Like, viral was something that we thought you needed a topical cream to cure, right? Come on, that was good. You guys are a hard crowd. No, what happened was it started to grow, and then what I found is I enjoy writing, and I enjoy putting stories together. So but yeah, it's become a job. It's not necessarily by design. It's much more by accident. Yeah.
Yeah, Biden just signed off on an executive order pertaining to antitrust the other day. Plus the DOJ and the NAR agreement blew up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious about what you think is going to be the next shoe to drop on that level.
Top to Rob.
Thanks.
Listen, I've been on vacation for the past week and a half, so my head is starting to try to catch up here. I don't, again, I believe in conspiracies. What I know is a lot of these fintech companies, they're heavily funded, they're agenda driven, they have lobbyists, I work with multiple listing systems around the country, they all have account reps who are working with multiple listing systems, they have lobbyists in Washington. I think this is by design. I think the attack on real estate agents and the class action lawsuit is by design. And I think this whole thing I also think the lawsuit with Zillow falling apart was by design. And I think the DOJ walking this thing back with NAR is also by design. Because your average real estate agent is charging 5.09% right now. Your average fintech company is charging north of 7% plus all the other, ancillary fees that we have. Nobody's looking at that. This stuff doesn't happen accidentally. I do think it's all by design. I think there's a lot of money in lobbying, and I think there's I don't think it's accidental. Yeah. Anyone else?
Second homes and investment property, Fannie and Freddie limited it to 7%. Now that the government is going to retain Fannie and Freddie, the agencies, do you see any changes in that?
Listen, this is, pin the tail on the donkey type of thing. But it seems to me that, the DeMarco and what was going on with him, I think is entirely different than what the new director of the FHFA is going to be looking at. I think they're going to be rolling back a lot of the policies that DeMarco had in place, and that would seem to be one of them. I find it very peculiar that you have two agencies who are almost nearly wholly government owned right now, whose sole purpose is to provide affordable housing for families and individuals, is trying to walk back the whole idea of providing funding. It would kind of be like what the road we were going down with DeMarco is kind of like Ford saying, I'm going to quit building cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it seems to me that the change in director is probably going to be a change in policies, and hopefully some of these things that don't make a whole bunch of sense to me are going to be walked back. I mean, that's what I would think. It seems to be the direction, and that's what I would hope.
And then you have capitalism at its finest hour, where private money is gonna come in and take that space over where the agencies were occupying.
Well, that's a
What's happening right now?
right.
It is.
It is.
Look at non-agency rates compared to agency rates when it comes to a second home or an investment property right now. Your IQ lenders are pricing better than agency.
No, and it is, as I said before, is if you want to call yourself a professional loan officer, you owe it to yourself and your clients to go ahead and see what's going on in terms of what some of these price adjustments that you're going to deal with to find out where the best rate's going to be. I mean, I've seen some of these price adjustments which are like 6 and 7 points. It doesn't even make sense. Hopefully, a lot of those numbers are going to start to come down. All right. Well, with that said, thank you so much. I was under an hour. I was just blowing through stuff.
Did you get your earlier flight?
No.
Really?
I was just blowing